an online learning platform for salespeople and managers. He's a certified speaking professional and has delivered more than 1,000 keynotes and training seminars in 42 states and 6 Canadian provinces for the leading dealers, manufacturers, and associations in the construction products industry. His magazine articles have won gold and silver writing awards from the American Society of Business Publishing Editors. He is the author of 3 books, most recently, and The Sales Secret and Sales Economics. Rick is a successful triathlete, advanced classical pianist, and a hack golfer. He is very similar to a genius, although not actually one, kind to old people, way above average looking, and he possesses a wonderful sense of humor. You know this must all be true because he wrote this introduction himself. Please welcome Rick Davis.
Thank you, Alicia, for reading that with such passion. I love it. Thank you. It's funny. I have had people that take that introduction and they stand up there and they go, he wrote this himself, but let me read this to you. I'm like, you just kind of destroyed the punchline. So anyway, so thank you for not ruining the punchline. I appreciate that. And thank you, Lori Guest, for reminding me that they will be disappointed when I show up instead of Don Angelo, which I know, but anyway. All right. Hopefully I can wow them when they see the disappointment of the uglier old guy to Don Angelo. They'll still be thrilled with the content. I'm going to just share a few thoughts and then open up for questions. I applaud all of you for entering the thought leadership profession. I guess I got a little sense of what some of you are doing from your comments. And I think this is what we really do. It is thought leadership. I think that we call ourselves the Speakers Association. And when I attended some mastermind groups in the past and talked to a lot of people, I'm not sure that keynotes is everything we do and speaking is everything we do. There's a lot of different business models out there, and ranging from consulting, one-on-one coaching, keynote speeches, training. There's different areas of specialties and expertise, whether it's subject matter, content matter. And I've been primarily a training guy for 20 years. I would guesstimate I do about 5 keynotes per year. I would say that I speak to groups of 100 people, again, maybe 3 to 5 times per year. So that's not what I do, but I still have a pretty successful business, and I'd like to walk you through that. I don't know exactly everything you've covered, so I'm just going to share a couple thoughts with you, and I'll leave plenty of time for questions if you want. The first one is the answer to the first question on your workbooks today for me is you're selling outcomes, not just benefit, like what's going to happen after you leave. One of the things I do with my clients is we talk, people say, do you have an elevator speech? And I don't have an elevator speech. I'm not a dynamic change artist working with corporations that want to fix their culture to excel and dominate the competition. We've got all these elevator speeches that people teach you've got to create. I don't have an elevator speech. I will tell clients what I'm going to guarantee is going to happen. If they hire me to work with their salespeople, there's 3 things that I guarantee. And one of them is their salespeople will prospect and proactively look for new business. I absolutely guarantee it. They'll be ready to do so and know how to do it. Number 2, they're going to embrace accountability. And I share that because one of the things my clients are so frustrated with is that they can't get their salespeople to report and become accountable to them. And number 3, I promise them that they will adapt to the changing environment we live in, and they will become more adept at dealing with technology. They will be able to handle the price objection and increase margins. And I just guarantee all these things are going to happen by the time we're done with the program. And they say, wow. Notice what I didn't tell them. I didn't tell them who I am. I didn't tell them what I do. I didn't tell them who my background is. I tell them what they're going to get. If I have a group of managers that I work with, if it's an executive, if it's a coaching session, I'm very clear on the outcomes. And that's what I encourage for you. If you look through that whole list of all those people that Connor put up and all those people, I've never used any of those, by the way. I don't do speakers bureaus. I don't even know if I have a profile that's ever gotten me a lead. I don't know if I've ever updated it on any of the speakers pages, because I'm not waiting for people to come to me. I want to go out and get them, and I'll talk about that momentarily. I thought there was another interesting question there. Who's your buyer? One of the great concepts I've heard in our profession, I think I got this in the mastermind group from Nito Cobain, or could have been somebody else. I really don't know. But you've got two audiences. You've got targets. You've got your target and your audience. There's two kinds of buyers. Your target writes the check. Your audience consumes the goods. And I think it's really important to recognize that it's not just enough to sell the quote unquote decision maker. You really need to wow the audience for a number of reasons. Number one, they're the ones who are going to funnel up the chain. What a great job you did. It's where you're going to pull a lot of your testimonials. And don't underestimate the power of people in your audience becoming the future decision makers. I think it's a big mistake we make in selling is that we don't recognize that the people that are currently the worker bees of today become the decision makers of tomorrow. So recognize you've got to sell to that vice president, as somebody said, or the head of the association, but you're always working to make sure that your audience is absolutely thrilled when you're done, because if they're not, it doesn't matter how good a salesperson you are. So again, you got to get through a lot of clutter, and that's what I want to help you with today. I'm not waiting for the phone to ring. I'm not putting my information out there. I don't do speakers bureaus. This is just personal, by the way. Not, Lori can comment differently if she wishes. Amy can too. I find that the speakers bureau, the 2 or 3 times I've had any engagement encounters with them, they're calling me because somebody else requested me. And I don't need them for that. They already know me. And if I go through the speakers bureaus, I feel like they're going to go with their primary people all the time. And I've got to really work, get my foot in the door. So I'm not a speakers bureau person. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. Obviously they're successful for a lot of people. I'm just telling you what I've done. I want to tell you how I sell. I also took some notes on some don'ts, because I see a lot of mistakes that I think aspiring thought leaders make. I'm gonna call us thought leaders, by the way. I'm not gonna call us speakers. I'm gonna call us thought leaders. Lori Guess is great. She speaks on humor. She's got a program. She's got what I call best, better, good selling. She's gonna walk you through that, I think. So what you're gonna talk about, Lori? A little bit? Doesn't know yet. But she talks about offering different packages to her clients. So she's got a book of opportunities, a different menu of options that she offers people. So I don't want to just call speakers. I'm gonna use the term thought leaders moving forward. Okay. I'm not a big fan of social media. I don't social mediaize, or whatever you call it. My website sucks. I'm very hands-on, human touch, one-on-one contact. My primary marketing methodology is something that is I call it a tip of the day. I don't send it out every day anymore, but I send out tips regularly. They are short, they are sweet, they're to the point. I don't include any promotion in them, or rarely do I include promotion in them. But what I do is I try to offer thought-provoking ideas for my clients that get them to remember me. And we've expanded that list to about 8,000 people in email. It's not a huge list, but it's not bad. I work with a magazine in my industry. You heard Alicia say that I'm in the construction products industry. That's my area of specialty. And the magazine has a readership of some 35,000. I'm a regular contributing editor there. They invite me to do webinars. We just started a podcast. So I work in a different way to make sure that I'm getting my name out to a lot of people. I'm not saying not to use social media, by the way. What I am saying is to manage numerically the size of your audience that you're communicating with, because I think there is a direct correlation between the size of the audience you're communicating with and the popularity and the inbound calls you'll get for engagements to work with you. There's another thing that I want to say, and I don't know how much this has been discussed in your candidate university, but I think content is everything. And I think this is too undersold in our profession. And I think that there's a lot of people, everybody says, oh, I want to speak. I got a great story to tell. But your content needs to be original, and it needs to be compelling. And that's the hard part. A lot of people can get the first engagement, but the real power is getting the repeat engagement. And that's by having really great, unique, authentically you content. Don't try to be something you're not, and don't steal other people's content. I recently attended one of our chapter presentations to see a gentleman speak. I'm not even gonna tell what a subject is because it would give away who it is. I was I was more than embarrassed. I was angry when he used an old Zig Ziglar trick of saying, here's my ID. I showed up late. The person looked like they're in a bad mood. So I gave them my credit card. They go, sir, this is, yeah, I'll need some other form of identification. And you flip it over and he showed this. It says some other form of identification. Ha ha ha, very funny. He stole that from the greatest motivational speaker of all time, Zig Ziglar. And I was offended by that. I heard another gentleman who got paid $20,000 for a keynote. I was one of the stage speakers. I wasn't the primary keynote speaker. I know this guy got a lot of money, probably $20,000. And he told a Zig Ziglar story. You can't do that. You can't tell the starfish story. If you're going to tell somebody else's story, you better let people know you've done so. I'll give you an example of that. When somebody asks you how's business for you, here's what I want you to say. Unbelievable. Because that way you got both bases covered, whether it's good or bad. I think it's pretty funny. Tom Hopkins taught me that. He's one of the great sales trainers of all time. I don't take credit for that. I use it, but I give credit for the quote. So that's the thing that I want to say about just the don'ts of this business. Don't worry so much about your elevator speech. Worry about the outcomes, how you're going to help people, what's going to be different after you walk out of there, and make your content very original. One of the tricks of the trade that the great speakers all use is one I want you to have as you develop your content. And I want you to write this down. This is the 3-step process for communicating. Number one, give me an idea. Share an idea, a concept with your audience. Then take that concept and relate it with a personal story, an experience you've had. And then number 3, apply that story, that experience, that concept to your audience. That is the absolute best formula I've ever heard. I've used it hundreds upon thousands of times. I've got numerous stories that I share, and I recommend the same for you. Give them an idea that you think will help them. Tell them a story about the outcome that occurred, and then apply it to your audience. I'll sneak one of those in here before we're done. So that's what I like you to share. That's what I like to share with you. I am going to share something on my screen I'd like you all to see. I don't want to PowerPoint you to death, but I do want to share something. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let me get this right. I got 2 screens, so let me see if I can pull this off. Great. Oops. Let me share screen 2. Share. Cool. I think I did this right. Can you see something that says Building Leaders Inc., a business model?
Yeah.
You see that? All right,
Yeah.
great. I want to walk you through my business model, what I've done. I quit my job in May of 1999 and decided I was going to try to take a stab at starting my own business. I was in the construction products industry, and I had started doing training on my employer's dime. I had developed some training programs. They twice were written up in magazines, so I knew I was doing something right. And so I thought, man, I could go out and do this on my own. And much to my pleasure, when I quit the company, my own team, I had about 20 or so employees in 2 different departments. And my right-hand person, Candy, said to me, we wondered how long you'd last. I'm like, what's that supposed to mean? She goes, you got to move on. We knew you were going to move on. It was very flattering. And I was really excited because a lot of my customers from my existing, employer, they said, Rick, if you went out on your own and did this, we'd hire you. And so I called them all. Like, I had a list of at least a half a dozen of them. And they said, oh, I didn't think you'd really do it. So I had nothing. None of them hired me. And I just sat in my my basement, and I had nothing. That was 20 years ago. So what happened was I picked up the phone. I started smiling and dialing. and I started selling my services on what I call a private platform. This means I went to companies that had their own sales force and I was going to work for them. And again, I did it within the construction products industry. One of my favorite leaders in our industry, thought leaders in our industry, is a gentleman by the name of Mark Leblanc. He's out of Minnesota. Mark Leblanc says, you must be known to somebody or known for something. In other words, I think it's very powerful to target a niche. Addiction, people with addiction, cancer survivors. Those were a couple I just heard. I don't think being a leadership expert is enough. I don't think being a sales trainer is enough. I will tell people, you want to sell pharmaceuticals? Probably not your guy. You want to know how to sell, vacuum cleaners in home? I know I'm not your guy. Do you want to know how to sell wood, roofing materials, windows and doors to a builder? I'm your guy. It's that niched. And not only that, I'm known for something within that industry. I'm known for prospecting and metrics and the science of selling within an industry. So be known to somebody and be known for something. And if you can do it, do both. Do both. So that was my endeavor. I decided to go on a private platform, and surprisingly, my first engagement was a company that hired me to consult with them. I will tell you a quick little story that my first client invited me to talk with them because they'd heard about me. They wanted me to help them with an architectural sales program because I do architectural sales, right? And I said, okay, I can do that. So I had a meeting with them. And after about a half an hour meeting, I hated to say it. I said, I hate to tell you something. You guys, you're not in position for this. You don't have the right structure, the right sales structure. And they said, really? I said, yeah, I want to do some stuff for you. And then they said, well, what would you do? And we had another talk. We talked about 45 more minutes. I asked them a lot of questions. And the owner of the company was a man named Merle Beck. He was a Mennonite in northwestern Ohio. He had a manufacturing facility in China. It was a small $25 million company. And he said, well, Rick, what would you do to help us? And I looked at him and I said, okay, let's be clear here. First off, I'm just starting my business, but I've got lots of years of experience in this business and I've never done what you've done. Nothing is broken here. You have a great company. But that being said, here's some things that I would do if I were you. And I gave him some advice. I didn't even apply for a job. I said, you should do this, this, and this. Whatever. I won't give you the details of what it was. After about an hour and a half, 2 hour meeting, he said, Rick, could you excuse me and his son, Randy, who ran the company with him? I said, sure. They had me wait in the lobby of their office. 10 minutes later, Randy came out. He said, we want to hire you. I said, great. He goes, so bill us for today for your travel time here and back. My dad says you're in. And then we'll start talking next week about some things you can do for us. I'm like, okay. He goes, yeah, so even bill. My dad said, bill for your drive time here and back. I go, that's like 7 hours of drive time. He goes, yeah, my dad wants you to bill us for that. I said, okay. I got my first client, not because I had an elevator speech, not because I promised I could do something, but because I was authentically sincere in ways that I could help them. And my elevator speech continues to this day. If you want to call it an elevator speech, I always try to give people things for free. How can I help you for free? Because they know that if I can help them for free, I bring value to the table. I have to prove to them is that's just the tip of the iceberg of what I can do. So don't be afraid to give your advice out. Don't be afraid to share that. But that was my first client. What I ended up doing next is I got a training client, couple training clients. And then in 2001, I discovered something. And who was that here? Michael worked with associations. Associations are a great source, and that's where I really started to build my business. I do something that I don't know who coined the term, but in my office, we call it wraparound. It's where we take engagements that will enable us to get secondary engagements off of it. So I might work with a manufacturer at a discounted rate if they will have me do a series of events for their customers, because later on, all their customers will hire me. I'll work with an association because the association might have a bunch of members that they can all later hire me. So in purple, you'll notice I put that because the red is where I get paid. The green is the core business model. The red is where I get paid. And the purple's kind of a combination of marketing and selling. I'm actually making money off that, but I'm very cognizant of any event that I do that could lead to another event. So, Mary, for example, for you, it might be something like, a hospital engagement working with a team of doctors that could refer you to people. It could be a church event where people, secretly have these addiction problems and they want some help. It could be different things like that, where you go to organizations and deliver some goods that enable you to get the wraparound sale, which creates follow-up revenue for you. I didn't really get into marketing too much until that year, 2001, a year and a half into it. I did my first website. I built it myself on Network Solutions. I became a columnist for a magazine in 2003. I've been doing this ever since for 17 going on 18 years. I switched magazines recently, but I write for the leading publication for the lumber and building materials industry, and I'm very well known for that. And I do it for free. I get trade. I get advertisements in the magazine with regularity, which is worth a lot of money, but I do it because it helps me differentiate myself from everybody else in the business. I wrote my first book in 2004. I built a public platform in 2004 when I realized something important. I felt like all the training I was doing was really good, but it was just getting lost. And what I discovered through reading a book about training is that the transfer of training is more successful when the manager buys into it. So I did my first sales management retreat in 2004. This is a public event where I bring managers in from around the country. I think the first one we charged about $995. We're up to about $2,000 per person. Obviously, we didn't do one this year because we had to cancel because of the COVID. But we're going to probably do some virtual ones coming up. But this is where I bring my clients' managers in from around the country, and where this leads. The last time I did one, I had 4 companies represented, and 3 of them became regular clients of mine. So there's a little wraparound on that. I did a sales boot camp after that because what I discovered is a lot of my clients would have me come in, but then they would hire more salespeople and they wanted them to get the same exposure so they could send them to something, which was my sales boot camp. I started a roundtable in 2017. I have 6 members this year. I think we're going to go back up to 7. It's an exclusive group, hand selected by me. I don't publicize this. I invite people based upon some very specific credentials, and it's a solid money maker for me, and it's stable. It really, really helps me create stability because I have this group of clients that they send people to boot camps, they buy my online learning, and they pay a fair amount of money to be part of this roundtable, which we are conducting virtually this year. And instead of meeting 2 times a year, next year we're going to meet once and continue the virtual into the future. I started my tips that I told you about in 2011. I wrote my second book and my third book. And I started that CRM that I partnered with somebody on that, where I have a software that creates a little residual income for me. I started my online learning platform, and two years ago, I'll happily show that to somebody privately. By the way, my offer to any of you that you would like is if you want some time with me off screen, I'm not saying you would or wouldn't, it's an offer. Amy Sagami and I've met privately at our local coffee shop. I would meet with any of you. I would meet with any of you to do the same. I don't charge. I'm not interested in making money off of fellow thought leaders. I'm here to help an industry that I believe in. So if anybody ever wants to just have a private chat on all this, I'm happy to do so. I do keynotes. They're very little. You notice that. By the way, the size of the green's the size of the revenue model expectation. I presented this presentation in 2019, and I decided I was going to podcast in 2020. I didn't even know how I was going to do it. Wow, the power of quantum physics in the universe. The magazine I write for asked me if I would like to do the podcasting for them. We've recorded about 8 or 9 of them, and the first one is going to be released. I think, in fact, I'm sorry, it just got released. And so I do podcasting now. So this is a business model that I've cultivated over the years. What I want you all to see is not to be sickened and say, wow, I want that. I want you to know something, and I'm going to go way back in time. I want to go to the moment that I quit my job and I sat in my basement and I had nothing. No articles, no credentials, no recognition, no writings, nothing. And I share this because I don't want you all to be intimidated by the fact that so many times you're going to go see some events where other speakers like me or Lori, you say, oh, I make $10,000 to $20,000 a year, which I'm not always that so sure that's true either. I build $20,000 per speech, maybe. I don't want you to be intimidated by all that. Think, oh my gosh, am I supposed to be a $10,000 speaker right out of the box? You're not. What you have to recognize is it's a long haul. And the piece of advice that I want to give before I tell you about the marketing, how I went from 0 to 60, how I became an overnight success in 20 years. I want to throw one other thought at you that before I forget, I'm going back. I meant to do this earlier. You need to treat your business as a business. I learned this the hard way when we had that recession in 2008, 9, 10, 11. I would have a good month and I'd pay myself, whatever I paid myself, a lot of money one month. And then I didn't have much money in the bank. And then next month I didn't pay myself much money. And then, it was up and down, and I didn't treat my business like a business. And then I had to figure out how I was going to pay some of my bills and things like that. I want you to remember this. I think this is one of the best pieces of advice anybody can give you about becoming a thought leader. You have to run your business as if it's a business. Even if somebody gets $10,000 for a speech, they don't get $10,000. They probably get 5 or 6 of it because there's expenses that you incur. There's LinkedIn memberships, or there's software that you have to buy, or there's computers you have to buy, or there could be travel expenses, or there's marketing expenses. I am proud to tell you this, that I made the decision almost 10 years ago that I was going to pay myself a straight salary, and my 2 employees, that my wife's one of them. She has her own business, but she works part-time for the company of a full-time employee, and she's worked for me for 10 years. I have not missed a payroll in 8 years, not once. And I take great pride in that. I'm very particular about cash flow. And I think it's the secret that nobody really tells you about this business. They'll brag about how much money they make, and they brag about lots of things. What they don't tell you is you've got to account for marketing expenses. You've got to account for overhead expenses, for other costs, for membership expenses. To NSA cost me $1,000 a year. I've been a member for almost 20 years now, for the local chapter and the national chapter. All these little nicks and dings start to add up. So treat your business as a business. And I'm proud to tell you that not everybody got this, but when the PPP loans became available during COVID, it was very easy for us to apply and get the money in a snap because we had a payroll. I'm an S corporation. So that's just an aside. I wanted to share that with you. I want to spend about 10 minutes just walking through sales and marketing ideas for you. There's an evolution that will occur for you in your career. In fact, I decided to pull up one other slide I've shared in the past. I don't think anybody tells you this either. Whether you like it or not, I hate to tell any of you this, you are a salesperson. There's no getting around it. I teach sales for a living. In my book, The Sales Secret, nobody wanted to be called a salesperson. They wanted to be called an account executive, or a regional manager, an area manager, whatever, consultant. Nobody wants to be called a salesperson because it's a dirty word, because we've made it a dirty word. I tried to write a book that brings honor to the profession of selling. And I think it is honorable if we're sincerely trying to help people. So you have to sell. And I'm going to tell you something that you might not like hearing, but when I started my business, I sat right here in the same spot I am now. It wasn't redecorated like it is now. I got shelves up and things you can't see, and a wet bar in our basement, all that. But I started in this very basement, and I picked up the phone and I made hundreds of phone calls. That means Michael called associations. It means Mary might have to call out of medical facilities. It means Barbara might have to call, a lot of organizations that are whatever target size she wants. My target audience is typically 50 to $500 million companies. But you've got to know what you're after, and you've got to pick up the phone, and you got to call and call and call. And don't call to sell them today. Call to introduce yourself and open up a relationship. It's interesting. While I was on this call, a man that just said, we're not interested in doing business with you right now, wrote me a note He's a past customer at a different company he worked for, and said, Rick, I just saw this article. I want to know your opinion on it. So he just told me we're not going to do business with his current employer right now, but yet he just followed up with me and he says he wants my opinion on an article. And do you get what I'm saying here? He wants a relationship. The relationship comes before the sale. I'm a sales expert. That's what I teach. Build the relationship first. Build that camaraderie, build that rapport, build that credibility first. Then they'll find a reason to do business with you. What I have learned is that when you have a business startup, it's hard for you. Nobody's going to tell you this. You see all these people with $10,000 and $20,000 price range, $5,000 to $10,000 and all that. Well, that sounds really great. That's what I want to do. I started at zero. I started doing some things for free. I started doing my very first engagement. I paid $250 for a half a day event. That was not after I quit my job. My very first engagement, I think I got paid $1,200 a day, and I was thrilled. I had 2-day events. It was great. I took what I could. There's a process where you take the business that all of you guys are launching right now, and you go from business startup to maturity. And it begins with intense prospecting and content development. Now, some people deliver the same content over and over again. There's a story of one popular speaker for the National Speakers Association who literally gave the same speech like every time he went on the platform. I don't do that. I've got so much content that I really have built the ability to tailor it for me. So I'm always developing new content. I was doing a recording yesterday for my online learning platform, and this was an accident. And I'm nervous about this. I'm not sure if I want to do it, but I said the difference between everybody knows, leadership is not a title that comes on a business card, right? Leadership is the credibility you earn. You have to earn permission from people to be a leader. I said, it's really about permission leadership. And I thought, oh, I like that. Seth Godin wrote a book called Permission Marketing. I think I might try to write the book Permission Leadership if it hasn't been written already. And because it's really a very powerful idea. Now I'm just sharing that with you because that's a new content idea. I capture it. Lori Guest is a very funny woman. And one of the things I found out about comedians is they're very good at something. They're not funnier than us. They just remember to write the funny stuff down and then repurpose it later. What good content developers do is they remember the new good idea, they write it down, and then they repurpose it later. So don't ever stop developing your content. As you build your business, what you're going to find out is you're always looking for new clients and you're always repurposing your content and developing new product. But what you find out, if you're doing your job right, is you're building some organic growth. I want you to understand and hear this right now. I guarantee this. You can write this in stone. You have to put in a ton of work to get that train moving down the track. The best metaphor I can give you is a steam engine. By the way, this is a speech I gave, I bet you 15 years ago. I don't think I pulled this one out of my content hat in at least 15 years. If you want to get that steam engine going down the track, you got to throw this coal on that engine. Got to throw a lot of coal on the engine. You know what happens when you throw all that coal on, then you put in sweat, equity, and time and energy. And you know what you get for all of that heat and energy and difficult struggle you put in? You get this. That's it. It feels like nothing. And I'm like, what? I'm not getting anywhere with this. But what you don't realize is the heat buildup you've already created is starting to power that steam. And if you don't throw one more lump of coal on that engine, you're going to get this. And here's the moment. If you keep throwing that coal on the engine, you keep making those phone calls, you keep networking, you keep writing those emails, you keep getting in front of people, you keep doing that dull, tedious, hard, one contact person at a time, and a funny thing will start to happen. The heat builds up and the engine starts to crank down the track. And then another wonderful thing happens. People start calling you. They say, hey, I heard about you. Hey, I saw your speech. Hey, a friend of mine told me what you did for them. Hey, a business associate recommends you highly. This is what starts to happen because you wrote an article for a trade journal, an association journal. If you're Michael, if you're Mary, you wrote something for a medical journal. If you're Barbara, you wrote something for some business, local business. You got published in Cranes. Get published. Don't get on Oprah. It's a hard way to. It's a long way to go to wait for Oprah to call you. Get published any way you can and do it for free and make sure people know how to reach you. Get your byline in there, okay? Then what happens is your business reaches maturity. This means your business starts to evolve. You have elevated speaking fees and you find passive income streams. So this whole thing begins with a single phone call. I have a tip list that includes 8,000 people that voluntarily say, go ahead, Rick, send me an email. Who wants more email? They do. And my director of important stuff, that's her title, Elise, who's worked with me for years, is amazing. She says, oh my gosh, we had a really good day. I go, we did? She goes, yes, like 4 people signed up today. I said, that's a good day? She goes, yeah, usually it's only 1 or 2. I want you to hear the power in that. It's taken us years. Now, some days we get a list of 40 people that a client sent or whatever, but it's one phone call at a time. There's no getting around it. There's no shortcuts. There's no getting your name on some list. There's no putting your profile on something that's going to also build your business for you. You have to get out there and make phone calls. And I would recommend for every one of you to try to make at least 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 phone calls or emails a day to somebody who is a potential client that could do business with you. And don't do it to get the business today. Do it to open a relationship today so you can get the business tomorrow when they're ready. Closing is about timing. That's the thing I want to tell you. The last little graphic I'm going to show you before I open up for some questions is this. I don't know who told me this one. I really don't. It might have been a guy named Ford Sakes. I don't remember. I want to give credit, but I really don't know who suggested this one. But one of the things that you should be thinking about now is what we call a product pyramid. What can I get from you for free? What can you do for me without any cost to me or a $5, $10 or $15 cost? What is it that gets me to remember you today? For me, it's my tips. Could be a social media, Twitter, could be whatever, could be something. But what is it, right? Then I have my books, The Sales Secret and Sales Economics. I'm going to give you my email when we're done. If you just send me your email, I'm going to send you a copy of The Sales Secret. It's a parable. It's a story of selling. I'll give it to you for free. I'd just like you to read it. I can't promise I'll sign it because I'm just going to have Elise fulfill
Call me
it.
back, okay?
What's that?
No, let me call you back. I'm taking a course.
Yeah, anybody that wants a copy of this book, you just let me know. I'm going to send it to you for free. It won't be signed because Elise is going to fulfill it from our fulfillment center. But I self-publish my books also. I will never try to seek a publisher unless they're going to pay me some big money because that's a whole separate dialogue we won't get into today. But I've got books and I've sold, I don't know, 15 to 20,000 books over the years. It's not a huge revenue generator, but it's a good calling card. But I don't do it just for a calling card. In fact, you'll notice it doesn't say Rick Davis says this. It's truly a book. It's not just a calling card. It's content rich. And I want you to see it. It's a parable I wrote, and I think it will help you get some ideas about what it means to be a sales leader and build your business. I have a third party partner with me on a CRM. If you don't know what that is, it's a database system. It's not my favorite thing I ever did. I don't love the partnership I have, but I still get checks every quarter from them. I do speaking and training. That's a higher level of earning for me. That's where the fees come in, where you get people to pay you for that daily fee. I still do public events, and I'm not sure which order I should put these in. I get a similar fee for them. There's a co-op of buyers called Do It Best. Some of you might have heard of Do It Best. Or maybe you heard of Ace Hardware. These are co-ops. These are companies that actually don't make any money. They actually they don't sell anything. Their clients sell things. Their members sell things, and then they get money on a different business model. I won't get into details on that, but I work with them. I work with trade associations with regularity. I've got relationships with many of them. They bring me in periodically, and I always do those events plus my public events, which is my sales boot camp, my roundtable, and my sales management boot camp. And those things can be huge revenue generators for me. I've had as many as 60 people at one of those events where 60 different salespeople have been paid a fee by their manager, their owner, their companies, whatever, to come to those. So those have become very lucrative for me. They're very hard to pull off. You really need to build a real scale to have enough people to fill those rooms. Then recently I did Building Leaders 24/7. I might just flash it on the screen for 1 minute for y'all to see what that is. But this is my online learning platform I've been working on for a couple of years. Very competitive field right now because there's LinkedIn training for free. There's YouTube videos for free. Very difficult, very competitive. Again, it's why I'm so focused on being niched. And it's turning out to be, I think it's going to be a scalable, very lucrative opportunity for me. And then consulting. And this is really an important one. I'm going to stop. And I want to take just a moment for this. Since 2006, I've had a pretty stable consulting engagement almost every one of those years. And it's not an accident. I seek them out. A couple times I've had two. I don't like to have two, but I'm always looking for that client that will engage me for everything. On-site, coaching, mentorship for their leaders, online, follow-up dialogue with them, virtual conversations. And I do this for a reason. It's per hour and per day. It's my lowest paid fee, so to speak, but it's a big number. And what it does is it enables me to create stability in my business model. And I'm proud to say, I just got on the phone yesterday with a consulting client that I've been working with since January of this year. They're pretty thrilled with the work we've done. We've really gotten the results and the outcomes that I promised them. And we're pretty close to fulfilling the contract for an engagement for 2021, which I'm thrilled because it's going to save my business and my bacon in a huge way. So don't underestimate the power of what you're looking at. Take a picture if you want to. You're not going to offend me, because I want you to think about the different ways you can commoditize what you do. I think you should self-publish a book, every one of you. If you don't want to do a hardback like I do, which means you have to run a minimum of 3,000 to get a hardcover. I just like hardcover. I think it's more stable. You can get print on demand and soft cover, but I really recommend you do that. Again, if anybody wants to follow up with me, I'll tell you all the steps I went through, how you get an ISBN number, how you get the editor. In fact, no, call Cindy. I want you to call Cindy. Cindy's your woman. You call Cindy and she's going to walk you through the process. So are you good with that? You call Cindy. That's what she does for a living. You can call me and ask me, and I'll tell you what I know. And then I'm going to tell you to call Cindy because she is a content editor. Cindy, developmental.
Ghostwriter and development editor.
She's a developmental editor. There's a big difference between a ghostwriter, content editor, and developmental editor. You want a developmental editor like her. Okay.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for the
welcome.
plug. That was not planned.
That was not planned, but it's sincere, and you got to find the right people to work with. That's another thing I should tell you. The last thing I'll say is this. I have an organization that includes a graphic designer named Linda Van Dorn, but she doesn't work for my company directly. I have a video team, Foxhole Creative. They're a mile from my house. Tim Frank and Natalie Gottlinger and Haley and Tony and the team that I just filmed with yesterday. They're not employees of mine, but I have to pay them money because I subcontract with them. You've got to build a team over time. You find the right vendors and the right people to work with. The big thing I want you to see is you can have this. You can have this. You can go to this. Any one of you on this call can do this, but it takes 20 years or 10 or whatever. And it starts with nothing more than a little spark. And it starts with nothing more than that very first phone call you're willing to make. And it's the toughest phone call you're going to make. And don't procrastinate. Don't make the excuses. Drop the email, make the phone call, reach out to somebody, make the first call, not to sell them anything, but to open up a relationship, share the love. I use the word love willingly and happily with my customers. We are about love. I do business with the people I love. I choose my customers based on love. And I think you should do the same. I am going to stop sharing my screen. Questions? What's that mean? Is that good? Is that good?
That's our clapping.
Oh, that's clapping.
A round of
If you
applause.
mute, that's
And that
this
too.
is how they signal each other for clapping.
Does that help you guys?
Yes, I love that. I always love when you speak, Rick. It's
thank
always
you.
interesting, and you've built such a business, and I love all the branches and different areas. I actually am going to be calling you because I'm looking, not quite that big yet, but I'm looking to branch off, and I'd love to get your feedback on how it all wraps around. So one of my questions is, when you first started your business, it seems that it was completely clear that you were going into construction products industry. Was that because you were already there?
Number one, I was already there.
Okay.
I just knew that was, by the way, I'll tell you, I thought I was going to work with manufacturers. The big surprise for me was I didn't work with the manufacturers. I worked with the manufacturer's customers, the reseller
Okay.
of their products, but I knew I was going to go into construction. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I also had a vision right from the get-go. That's why my website, my company's not called Rick Davis is a really great speaker.com. It's called Building Leaders, because I wanted it to be about the content and the industry. And I always knew I wanted to develop video training. I didn't know it was going to be online 20 years ago, but so yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good, strong name.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled I got that. I got that website domain 20 years ago. I really lucked out.
Yes. And
Go ahead,
thanks.
Miss Beautiful Amy Sagami.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for sharing with us your enriched experience. One question that always got me is when people ask, what do you do? And I'm so relieved to hear that you don't have a elevator pitch. I did not know that all these years. So when people ask you that, how do you answer that?
I say I own a sales training company.
Mm.
And I specialize, and people even ask me, and it's hard for me because I just did a very long bike ride this last week. I rode the Natchez Trail a long way. I won't brag, but I met a woman who works for Florsheim Shoes, and she's the vice president of sales. And she goes, "Do you specialize in an industry?" And I'm like, "Yes, and it's not yours." I could help her, and I've gone outside my industry, but I'm very authentic and honest about that too. But I say I'm a sales trainer. And by the way, I'm going to send her a book. And and she thinks there's a reason to talk, we'll talk. The relationship comes first. I do not have an elevator speech.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Mary.
Would you please repeat your website?
It's buildingleaders.com. It's a terrible website. I don't have fancy pictures. I don't have, go to buildingleaders.com. And my email address is rickdavis@buildingleaders.com. And I want to tell you guys one other thing. I want you to hear this. This is really important for you to hear this. This is the face, right? It's been a very hard year for me. It's been a hard year for all of us. I fight depression. I fight the ups and downs. I'm not going to lie to you about that. I'm very open and honest about that. We need to get that out in the open. It's been a very hard year for me, but I still fight the battle, and it's not easy. And I don't want you to get off this call like, man, that guy's got it all together, because I don't got it all together. I'm just flesh and blood like all the rest of us, and I have my ups and downs and my struggles, but I keep batting, and I keep doing the little things that ultimately add up to big differences. You good?
Okay. Other questions?
Yes. Success is not noticeable in the moment. Success is what happens when you keep busy sticking to a plan. It creeps up on you. Thank you all for this privilege. I love doing this. This is really, I love doing this. I love helping people. This is not a mercenary endeavor. I could have made more money other ways, and so could all of you. So let's go out and help people. Thank you, Connor, for inviting me to do this. Oh, is there a question, Alicia?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, when you start, or how do you deal with people who may or may not be supportive of you being out on your own? Was your family very supportive, or did you have people who questioned whether or not you starting your own business was the right idea?
Well, I told people this, that I was about to go to the office the night before my wife's birthday because I had a meeting on the day of her birthday in Wisconsin where my company's home office was. And I said, what am I doing? And I went to dinner with her and I said, I'm quitting my job. I took her to dinner. We had a glass of wine. I cheered her for her birthday. I had a present for her. And I said, by the way, I'm quitting my job tomorrow. She goes, what? I go, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to open my own business. She said, cheers. Good for you. I will also tell you, I've had a lot of naysayers. And I ignore them, including parents that were not. Block that.
Rick, if I can ask you a question, you mentioned content development, and Cindy, go ahead and take a group photograph. I think it's just best we take it while it's actually natural. So, but your question for you, Rick, you talk about content development, which I believe strongly in. What do you do to make sure that your content is fresh and you're constantly coming up with new ideas or new ways to illustrate topics and points?
I make sure my stories are new and relevant. I always do new stories. And I'll tell you when I noticed this. I got a kick out of the debates the other night because Donald Trump brought up Perry Mason. I'm like, Perry Mason? And, you know, Joe Biden said, malarkey. I'm like, malarkey? I once did a story about Columbo and I looked around the room because I talked about how I do the Columbo. And I looked around the room and young people were going like this. And I'm like, you guys don't know who Columbo is, do you? So the content, the theories and the ideas are universal, but the stories make the content relevant today. Giving one quick example of that. I took the idea of the quality at bat in baseball and how that is measured today statistically. And I related that and I created a very unique thesis about how to measure the quality of a sales call for an outside salesperson. And my clients are blown away by it. I've created a scorecard for managers. That's a very authentic and a very universal and a very powerful concept. Well, I lucked out, Connor, and I was reading a Sports Illustrated article about the fact that all the scouts have been sent home. Baseball scouts have been replaced by statisticians, guys with graduate degrees sitting around with tablets and laptops, in Harvard business graduates, in sitting in Boston Red Sox and Oakland Athletics, facilities, evaluating talent statistically. I use that article because it's very relevant today to support my thought for the day. So the concepts must be timeless, but the relation must be relevant in today's day, especially, no offense to all of you on this call, we got a fewer younger people in, but most of us a little bit older now. You got to make sure that you're connecting with that younger audience. And that's hard for me. I actually found out what the music is. Jack Black, I try to find out what music they're listening to. I try to find what they're, because I want to stay relevant. It's hard. And I think that's a good question there, Connor.
All right. Yeah, I love to keep up with these new hip hop mini vanilla, is it? I'm only joking. I think I know what's happening in the music scene.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, you can actually lose your audience by using some references that seem so old or out of date. And one or two simple little things, you lose the credibility with the room straight away. So good points on adding content. Any final questions for Rick? And we will take a 2-minute break to prevent that dreaded, as I say, numbutt-itis. Okay. All right. So Rick, any final questions? No final questions? Rick, thanks a million. Give it a big up for Rick. All right. Rick will take a 2-minute break. Laurie will take a 2-minute break. And at 12, so it might be 2.5, 3 minutes. At 12 o'clock, Laurie comes back on and we'll go rocking and rolling again. Okay. All right.
Drop me an email if you want help, if you want my book, whatever. There's no charge. I'm happy to send to any of you. I want to help any of you grow to whatever degree you want.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. And you're welcome to stay on if you wish.
Yeah,
right?
I'm a stick around for. Yeah.
See you in a few minutes, gang. Take care.
Hold on.
Don't forget to mute your microphone when you walk away.
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to be shouting up to my wife saying, hi, what? Marco.
I was surprised I was able to actually get one with everybody's eyes sort of open.
Well, I thought it was interesting when Connor says, just take it organically and naturally. I'm like, I totally disagree because I'd be sitting here going like this when he takes a picture or something.
I have 6 versions.
Yes, I like to go, be ready, right?
So us laughing at his numbutt-itis made the.
There you go. Catch him in an odd spot.
How are you, Lori?
I'm doing good.
Good. Are you in the Illinois area?
Yep, I'm home. Tom and Evan are out doing a bro trip. They're camping all over Virginia or something like that. But
Oh, nice.
I stayed home, so happy to do so. I don't want to be doing no camping.
Well, it's warmer in Virginia though, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I've been inside all week. It didn't really matter. I went and got Ellie. She's at school in Milwaukee, so I went and got her and brought her home for a couple of days. That was nice.
Is she in Marquette or?
No, she goes to MIAD, which is the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design.
Oh, nice. Very good. What year is she there?
Sophomore.
Okay. Yeah, my daughter, we're doing applications for colleges now. So.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
Oh my goodness, crazy. Now,
So
when
Lori, are you in DeKalb or are you in Colorado? You were spending some time in Colorado, were you?
We were supposed to be in Colorado this week, but with all the fires and everything, and then Evan wanted to do a road trip with my husband, so we just scratched the Colorado thing right now. I think it's better just to stay put until we see how society shakes out in the next couple months. Then we'll make a decision. So
Yeah.
got to get out of Illinois, but I don't think it's going to be as soon as I wanted to. So
Oh, let's pay more tax than that.
yeah, we pay
it-
way too much tax. That's for
It's
sure.
patriotism. It's patriotism.
You don't
Yeah,
think it's fair? I don't understand.
yeah.
Yeah. Rick, you're sharing your screen at the moment, Rick Davis.
Come on, Rick Davis, you've had your time. Get off the stage. I like you muted, but I need that screen gone. I think he doesn't know. This ought to be interesting. Oh no, he's trying to show us his thing. Can you hear us, Rick? Nod your head.
I do know. I forgot to unmute myself. This is my online learning platform. I wanted you all to see it. And what I've done here is I've created all these, there's a bunch of videos and quizzes. And if anybody would have any questions about this, I can walk them through that process as well. Connor and I had a dialogue about that. He's building some really kick butt stuff. I don't know where you're at on that. But yeah, so if anybody's interested, this is my online learning platform. And different stuff is going on there. We just, but my clients dig it, and I just want to just let y'all see that too. So that's what this is.